You're listening to Big World Network.
Accidental Passion, Episode 2, Guardian Angels Part 2, read by Meagan Hedin. Warning: although there is no material subject matter within that couldn't be found in any general bookstore with no age constraint, this series is rated 18 and contains adult situations and content. It is intended for mature audiences only and should not be read if you are uncomfortable with graphic sexual intimacy. Alicia fumbled with her keys, unlocking the door to the dental office while Mary stood shivering beside her. The night air was brisk, and there wasn't much around the strip mall to break the cold wind. After getting it unlocked, she pulled the key back out and pushed her way into the dark waiting room with Mary close behind her. The warmth of the office was a stark contrast to the cold wind outside, and they both took a minute to undo their jackets and absorb some of the warmth. The waiting room was dark except for a small night lamp, the exit sign, and the parking lot streaming a little bit of light into the lobby. It's always so strange being in here after hours like this. It's just such a busy and alive office during the day. It seems so weird seeing this contrast, Alicia said. The hospital is the same way on the night shift. It's a completely different place, Mary responded, looking around the waiting room and receptionist area. Alicia noticed her shiver slightly, so she gently stroked Mary's hair with her fingers. Come on, let's get my stuff and get out of here. The sooner I put this past me, the better. She took Mary by the hand and led her towards the entrance to the back offices and exam rooms. Mary gently pulled on Alicia's hand, slowing her down as they made their way through the dark hallway towards the procedure room, where light was seeping out through the bottom of the door. What if he's using the nitrous? She asked hesitantly. The creep probably is. So what? What's he going to do? We get in, get my few things, and wish him luck with his pathetic life and precious sports car. They reached the door to the exam room, and Alicia hesitated for just a moment before opening it. When she finally did pull it open, she wasn't prepared for the brightness of the lights in the room after the dark hallway, nor was she prepared for what she saw on the procedure chair. Kevin was reclined back with the nitrous mask strapped over his face. His slacks were unzipped and pulled down with his underwear over his hips, leaving him completely exposed and completely limp, although it was evident from his limp right hand located in close proximity what he had been doing. Somewhat repulsed by the sight of his flaccid penis, Alicia quickly diverted her eyes back up to his face. Mary was still behind her in the hall and couldn't see him yet, but Alicia knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. He didn't look right. His eyes were rolled back and he was pale. Fuck, she said, moving out of the way so Mary could enter the room. Making her way inside, Mary immediately went to the unconscious man. Alicia reached him at the same time, pulling the greenish, clear plastic mask off his face and shutting off the flow of nitrous at the tank. Is he breathing? She asked Mary as she let the mask fall from her hand to the floor. I don't even know if he has a pulse, Mary replied, putting her fingers to his neck while leaning down with her ear to his mouth and nose at the same time. His pulse is weak, but he's not breathing. Her nurse's training was kicking in, and she tilted his head back to open his airway. Does this go back any farther? She asked Alicia, referring to the exam table. Alicia pushed a control pedal with her right foot and the chair reclined a few more degrees. She watched as Mary gave him a few deep breaths, using mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Do you keep anything around for reactions to the nitrous? Mary asked between breaths. Frantically, Alicia went to the far wall and pulled open a cabinet, rummaging through it until finding what she was looking for. It was an already prepared, prepackaged syringe with needle and emergency epinephrine. Here, she said, ripping open the sterile packaging. Give it to him. Alicia gave him the shot as Mary gave him another deep breath, inflating his lungs with her own air. She then stopped for a moment and listened, feeling again with her ear to see if he was breathing. He's starting to take shallow breaths. God knows how long he wasn't breathing for. We should probably call an ambulance. Mary, Alicia hesitated. Are you sure? As Mary looked up at her, she continued, He's a bastard, but I don't want to ruin his career. Besides, I could have helped him stop before, but instead I enabled. For that I owe him. We can't call unless we absolutely have to. This goes against my better judgment, but he does seem to be reviving, Mary sighed. Let's watch him and see how he does. If he doesn't continue to improve over the next 10 minutes, we need to call. Thank you. Alicia really despised him, cringed at the thought that she had given him oral sex when her life had been so dark before meeting Mary. She had had no emotional or physical connection with him whatsoever, but still allowed him to finish, all because she was lonely and feeling the euphoric effects of the nitrous oxide gas. "Hey," Mary yelled into his ear, slapping his cheeks with a moderate sting, trying to revive him. "I need you to keep breathing. Take some deep breaths for me." She looked down the length of his body and then turned up towards Alicia, smiling. "Who gets to have the honor of doing him up?" "Leave him like that." Despite her moment of generosity in preserving his career, Alicia wasn't feeling too compassionate after recalling the blowjobs she had given him, leaving her feeling used, dirty, and humiliated. It was one thing to pleasure someone you cared about, but that had been a seedy, ugly experience for her. Let him be humiliated. Mary laughed. "Do you suppose he finished?" "You look if you really want to know," Alicia kidded back. "I hope not." He was beginning to get more color back into his face and was visibly breathing. "Another few minutes and he would have been dead," Mary stated. "If I hadn't been so obsessed with putting all this behind me, he would be. It's after 1 a.m. in the morning. He must have one hell of a guardian angel." It was nearing 4 in the morning, and the cops had left several hours ago, but Kim still found herself wide awake, sitting in her living room couch with a pair of sweatpants and a tank top. Kevin still wasn't home yet, probably drunk and crashing at a friend's house. As she began to run through the events of the evening again in her mind, she was startled out of her thoughts by a light knock on the door. She hesitated, looking at the clock on the kitchen wall, visible from her vantage point in the living room. Before she could react and think through the possibilities of who would be at the door at this hour, the light knock sounded again, jolting her consciousness as much as it had the first time. Kim got up and made her way to the door. She felt heavy as she walked, feeling the effects of extreme stress from earlier, compounded with extreme exhaustion. Reaching the door, she peeked out the window and saw the man who had saved her and shot Rick only hours before. Without hesitation, she unlocked the front door and opened it. "I'm glad you came back," she greeted. "I have a lot of questions." "I can imagine so." The man, Gene Woods, as he had introduced himself earlier that evening, spoke sympathetically. "Are you doing okay?" he asked sincerely as he stepped inside Kim's living room. "You had quite an evening." Kim led him to the 2 chairs facing the couch and motioned for him to sit. She herself climbed back onto the couch, tucking her legs under her. Then, after she was comfortably curled up on the couch, she realized she hadn't offered him anything. "You saved my life, and I didn't even think to offer you a drink. I am sure you're thirsty or hungry, even after being at the police station most of the night," she said. "I'm fine, thank you." He adjusted himself in the chair across from her. "I know we are both tired, so it's time I answer your questions and explain why I was there, and who I work for."
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on BigWorldNetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.